Ideas lead to thoughts, lead to actions, lead to results, and that's a cyclical process.
Welcome to Velocitize Talks. I'm Andy North, and today my guest is James Banks, founder and owner of jamesbanks.co. James, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Andy. It's my pleasure.
You have founded and grown several successful companies over your career and have deep experience in WordPress, SEO, content marketing, and analytics. Tell us about your current company and what sets it apart in the marketplace.
The new company was, and just to clarify, it was something where, I've been in the, agency game for a bit over around 10 years and sort of getting to the point where I just felt like I need a little bit of a change of pace. So I decided to actually sell out my half of the ownership of the agency to my co-founder. He purchased my half of the agency from me, so I exited out from there. And I guess throughout my time, one thing that I guess kind of frustrated me, but then also saw as an opportunity at the same time is typically, when it comes to publications, websites, people, influencers, even teaching and sharing lessons about digital marketing, I think there is still, even to this day, a big disconnect between, I guess, theoretical lessons that are typically, blogged about, made videos about, versus what actually practically works in the trenches in real life, day-to-day companies. And I had an enormous experience doing that through the agency. So what I wanted to do now with jamesbanks.co, really ultimately the objective is very simple. It's just to help particularly first-time online business owners who are thinking of transitioning or entering the online business space, and they want to know how to successfully set up an online business and how to actually successfully market it online using real-life practical insights from the history that I've had through my agency experience. So it's simply a website where I'm documenting in the process of documenting all the lessons that I've learned over the last decade to help other businesses really grow and succeed with their own online marketing, search engine marketing, and use of WordPress.
What's it been like to work in WordPress over your career, and what do you see as the future of WordPress?
One of the things that really helped us get going and successful early on with the previous agency that I co-founded was one of the few companies that actually specialized in the WordPress CMS. This was back in the era where I think there was a lot of companies offering bespoke or proprietary CMSs, usually at an exorbitant rate, and then an exorbitant maintenance fee on the back because no one else could work with their own proprietary software, right? And there's sort of this reaction from the market to go against and was positive towards open source, which is where ultimately WordPress has been able to fulfill in such an amazing way. I really think that over the evolution, the biggest change, and it's been driven by other platforms. It's been driven by predominantly the DIY website builders. Is sort of the demand for a visual editing graphical interface. Obviously, there's been third-party plugins, i.e. Elementor, Divi, so on and so forth. Obviously, WordPress has now come out with their own native solution, Gutenberg, which has been, I guess, slow to the mark to get to where the market demands it to be. But it's now really where I think it's in a very phenomenally good, usable state that really anyone that's looking to even DIY their own site can use the native solutions to create an amazing site.
One of the things I wanted to touch on is you and your former business partner used to do a podcast where you each took opposing side of a certain marketing topic. And one of those was SEO versus social media. So I wanted to dig into that a little bit. They're both two strategies that are known for attracting new customers to a brand. But there's obviously an ongoing debate about which strategy would require the most focus depending on what your goals were. What are the pros and cons of SEO marketing and social media marketing, and what makes them unique, and which is better for your business?
The objective of the podcast is typically what we found was many businesses, marketing managers would come to us and they would say, what's better, this versus that? Or this, should I do this or that? Or you know what I mean? We've ultimately, from our perspective and experience, what we've noticed is that, typically a lot of people operate in a state of dichotomy. It's either this or that, or red versus blue, or SEO versus social, what's better, right? But ultimately what we found was And what we've tried to do with the podcast is dispel the dichotomy by actually showing the combined approach and the benefits of doing so. For example, and a typical objection would be, but that's too hard, that's too expensive, I've got limited resources, so on and so forth. And a successful SEO strategy requires, to a secondary degree, some form of social media. It's a signal. It helps, although minor at be. And if we look at social media, the core of a successful social media campaign is content, which also is the core of a successful SEO campaign. So you've got two marketing channels, both built around silos of content that usually where the effort and energy and resource and intelligence goes into. Typically, when you have the content piece there, 80% of it, you can simply not necessarily repurpose, but you can rework, say, a social media content piece, be it video or even a long form post. You can use that as a base and rework it to serve as part of an SEO strategy.
What are the key components to a complete digital presence? And if it is, well, at least one of them, multi-channel marketing, explain that to some of our audience who may not be as familiar with it.
Even each platform you could consider as a channel. For example, Google Search, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, they're all individual channels, mediums at which you can market your message on. A multi-channel approach requires, or typically is done at the strategy level downwards. Typically what we found with most, particularly first-time businesses or businesses that even have relied on traditional marketing and have actually then transitioned into digital marketing, is that they would go the bottom up. So they'll say, oh, I think this channel is doing really, really well. I've heard LinkedIn has got good organic reach. I'm just going to hit LinkedIn and sort of, just focus on stuff for just LinkedIn. Now, although that's not necessarily a bad thing, better than doing nothing, that's for sure, where it typically becomes disconnected is because you're going from the bottom up or from the channel up. When you try to then open up that content or that marketing message, whatever you're doing on LinkedIn, to another channel, there can become a disconnect. Worst case, or simple example, someone literally cuts and pastes what they post on LinkedIn and puts it on, let's say, Facebook. Completely different behavior, different intent, different audience. And that strategy rarely works.
What are some of the opportunities you see from the effects of COVID on digital marketing industry?
Consumer behavior, in my point of view, is not going to go back to what it was pre-pandemic. It's been here around long enough to build in the consumer behavior patterns to make online the first and in a lot of cases the only channel. So really focusing now on long-term strategy with robust, reliable solutions. Still a big gap on both sides of the market, i.e. businesses that don't have this. And also, I think, another big problem is actually, companies and people and agencies that actually have the service capacity to do it. Our biggest problem is that we didn't necessarily, we were not going out of business, but we simply did not have enough people in the agency to service all the needs of people that needed these solutions. So it's kind of like this supply and demand thing going on right now. Amazing opportunities to be had. But I guess the ultimate call to action is really focusing now on that long-term digital strategy and infrastructure so your business can succeed for the long term of the next decade and beyond.
If there was one thing that you could change about marketing, what would that be?
I think there's a big gap in the digital marketing industry around not necessarily analytics and tracking. That's all pretty well done, understood. But the actual insights and understanding of the data to turn into meaningful actions that leads to results that's aligned with the greater marketing strategy and the greater business strategy. Often the case, there is a big disconnect there, and you get the wolf blinkers, the horse blinkers on. It's like, oh, my sessions are down. What are we paying you for? Or the strategy is failing. It's like, no, you didn't realize that because we shifted ad budget to a more profitable channel, the sessions go down, but the actual ROI increases. You know what I mean? Like there's this sort of disconnect between the actual understanding of the data-driven side, particularly when it comes to multiple channels of marketing. I really hope that not necessarily a problem, but I guess greater awareness and education can be raised into this space, because I really see particularly the next decade of online marketing as this is going to become more and more and more prolific.
One of the questions we like to ask our guests is, what's the best professional advice you've ever heard or been given?
There's a reason or there's a meaning behind every single thing that happens, whether it be good or bad. I guess there's not such thing as a coincidence or coincidental action. Really understanding gets that train of thought that, ideas lead to thoughts, lead to actions, lead to results. And that's a cyclical process. And I guess once you understand that, if you can change your ideas and your thoughts, you can almost to a degree dictate your actions and results.
Is there another book, blog, or podcast that you'd like to share with our readers, our viewers?
I recently found there's this very old 80s, 90s series called Battletech. Not sure anyone knows it. Long and short of it, it's like these giant robots that sort of run around blowing things up. It's very sort of childish, but they created this abridged version on Audible, and they've got all the sound effects, and the voice acting is just, I've never heard an audiobook that has, it's like a Hollywood production with the voice actors and everything. It's just something else. So I've started listening to that, and it's been a lot of fun. But yeah, hey, I guess if you wanted to find out more, really I'm focusing all of my sort of publication, all of my content marketing on my site, jamesbanks.co is it. So hopefully maybe we can put the URL up somewhere. But yeah, if you're looking to, I guess, learn more about search engine marketing, in particular multi-channel marketing, any of the topics that we've discussed in the show today, then yeah, feel free to jump on, check out the site, subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you over there.
My guest today has been James Banks, founder and owner of jamesbanks.co. James, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure, Andy. Thanks very much.